There were 6 cops on my lawn with bee suits and flamethrowers. Karen from the HOA stood behind them, holding a clipboard and smiling like it was Christmas morning. And I swear to God, one of the officers actually said, "We're here to neutralize the threat." I didn't grow up dreaming of becoming a beekeeper. I fell into it the way some people fall into grief, slowly, then all at once. The day after we buried my dad, I walked behind his old house just to get some air. It was quiet, the kind of heavy quiet you only hear after a funeral, like the air itself doesn't want to say the wrong thing. And there they were, 15 wooden boxes, half painted, stacked in neat rows under the cottonwood trees. The bees were still working. Didn't give a damn about death. They had jobs to do. That's what stuck with me. Everyone else was calling, sending casseroles, pretending to care for exactly 7 days before disappearing. But the bees just kept going. They didn't wait for permission, didn't stop to cry. I stood there for maybe an hour watching them work. That's when it clicked. I used to help him, sure, but after college I moved out, chased corporate jobs, ran logistics software in 3 different cities. Never stayed long, never cared to. But standing there in the shade of those trees, I remembered how it felt to open a hive and hear that warm hum, like holding the engine of something ancient and alive. So I moved back in. The house wasn't much. Old ranch-style brick with a sagging porch and a roof that wheezed every time the wind picked up. The back acre was overgrown. Ivy strangled the fence posts. But I fixed it. Not because I wanted to impress anyone, just because that's what he would have done. I rebuilt the apiary from the ground up, replaced rotted boxes, installed proper irrigation lines, bought new smokers and gear, turned the garage into a honey room with stainless steel extractors. I called it Brenner's Bees, printed labels myself with a logo my niece sketched in pencil, cartoon bee in a cowboy hat giving a thumbs up. Kinda stupid, kinda perfect. At first, it was just me selling jars out of the trunk at farmers markets, but the honey was good. Better than I expected, honestly. Floral, dark, a little earthy. Pure clover mostly. No corn syrup, no tricks. Word spread fast. 1 month I had 3 regular clients. By the end of the next, I was getting calls from cafes asking if I could supply a dozen jars a week. Then the health food store picked me up. I built it slow and clean. No shortcuts, no frills, just quality. But what made my honey special wasn't just the flavor, it was them. The bees. My dad raised a strain of Apis mellifera, black European honeybees. Rarer than most people realize, hardy, slow to anger, and amazing at overwintering. Most of my hives were Italian hybrids, but he always kept one section for the ladies in black, as he called them. Said they were survivors, said they had personality. Those colonies were his pride. I kept them in the northeast corner where the wild goldenrod grows thick and the wind stays soft. That corner was sacred to me. Not fenced off, but private. A space with weight to it. He used to sit there for hours with a journal, tracking movement, measuring nectar flow, noting which colonies were getting mouthy. When I finally got licensed to handle the black bees myself, it felt like being knighted. I even framed his old USDA certification and hung it inside the shed. Anyway, that was my life. Quiet, satisfying, mostly bees, mostly peace, until Karen showed up. I'd seen her around the neighborhood, always walking with that weirdly stiff posture like her spine had its own HOA guidelines. The first week I moved in, she rang my doorbell holding a plastic welcome basket wrapped in cellophane. Inside, 2 scented candles, 1 magnet with the HOA's emergency contact number, and a 4-page pamphlet titled Visual Harmony, Guidelines for a Beautiful Community. She asked me what color I planned to repaint my garage. I told her I hadn't thought about it. She tilted her head and smiled like I'd confessed to a felony. We didn't exactly hit it off. Karen was the kind of person who spoke in phrases like shared values and collective vision, but what she really meant was, do what I say or I'll file a complaint. A president for 8 years. Running. Nobody even remembered voting for her. For a while, I stayed under her radar. The hives were tucked away. My sales were local. I didn't park trailers on the street or leave tools out. I figured if I didn't poke the bear, she'd move on. But then my honey started showing up in their stores. I got a call from a buyer at Whole Hive Naturals, small upscale market near downtown. They told me they were dropping Detweiler's Gold and going with Brenner's Bees for their premium shelf. I didn't think much of it, just figured it was good news. What I didn't know at the time, what nobody told me, was that Detweiler's Gold was Karen's nephew's brand. Tyler Detweiler, mid-30s, marketing bro turned sustainable entrepreneur, drove a leased Rivian and had a podcast called Believe in Yourself. His honey tasted like sugared water and had more corn syrup than clover. But hey, his jars were shiny and his Instagram had filters. He hated me before we ever met. I guess when you're used to coasting on connections and buzzwords, someone coming in with actual product, real product, feels like an attack. Suddenly, everything changed. Karen started showing up more, walking past my fence, slowing down to stare, taking pictures from the sidewalk. She even flagged me down once while I was mowing just to ask if I was aware of the liability implications of unregistered biological hazards. I blinked. You mean my bees? They are aggressive insects, Mr. Brenner, especially dangerous to children. I've received multiple concerns. Funny, I'd never heard a peep from my actual neighbors. The old guy next door even bought 2 jars a week from me. I told her they were registered, licensed, and fully within code. Karen smiled. Code changes, especially when safety is involved. Then she turned and walked off, slow, deliberate steps. Like a general leaving a battlefield she assumed was already won. That was the moment I knew. She wasn't just annoyed, she was planning something. It started small, like they always do. One morning, I walked out back and noticed something weird with Hive 9. The front landing board was crooked, looked like someone had bumped it hard. At first, I thought maybe it was raccoons. Happens sometimes. But when I got closer, I saw the metal entrance reducer had been yanked clean off and tossed into the grass. That's not a raccoon. I knelt down to check on the colony. The bees were agitated, more than usual. Defensive posture, lots of circling, the kind of behavior they only show after a stress event. I gently slid the top cover off, and there it was. One of the brood frames had been pulled out of the middle box, cracked in half, and shoved back in sideways. If you've never handled a hive, let me explain what that means. That's like someone breaking into your house, flipping your bed over, and stuffing your fridge in the bathtub. The bees were panicking because their core was wrecked. And the strangest part? Nothing was stolen. No honey was taken. No equipment missing. Just damage. Deliberate. Pointless. Surgical. Like someone wanted to hurt the colony, not rob it. I checked the rest of the hives, 15 total, all untouched. Only Hive 9, the black beehive. I should have called the cops, but I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I installed cameras, motion-activated ones with night vision. 2 in the trees facing the apiary, 1 behind the shed. I didn't even tell my friend Denny at the feed store, and I tell Denny everything. I wanted whoever it was to feel safe coming back. Next day, HOA notice on my door. Plain white envelope with Meadow Glade Neighborhood Standards Committee in embossed lettering. Inside, a printed letter, single-spaced, no greeting, just a formal tone soaked in condescension. We have received reports of aggressive insect activity in the northeast quadrant of your property. Pursuant to Clause 14.3b of the Meadow Glade Residential Covenant, no resident may maintain structures that pose a safety hazard to the community, including but not limited to wild or stinging insect colonies. You are hereby requested to remove the aforementioned structures within 10 days, or face formal review and penalty assessment. I read it twice, 3 times. They weren't even pretending. Just skipped straight to remove the structures. No conversation, no inspection, no actual complaint names, just a threat with a smile. I walked straight to the HOA mailbox by the clubhouse and dropped off a reply. Printed, signed, dated. Copies of my USDA license, my county registration, and a list of the specific species I was maintaining. All legal, all documented. I added one sentence at the bottom. Any unauthorized entry onto my property will be treated as criminal trespass and prosecuted accordingly. Didn't hear anything for 3 days. Then Karen showed up at my front gate. Full khaki outfit, HOA name tag, clipboard in one hand, Starbucks in the other. She didn't ring the bell, just stood outside the gate like she was waiting for an invitation to a party no one threw. I opened the door but didn't come out. Something I can help you with, Karen. She smiled like she'd practiced it in the mirror. Eli, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The letter you received wasn't a threat, it was a courtesy notice. That's funny, I didn't see any courtesy in it. Well, we've had several concerned residents reach out. Children have allergies, you understand. We have to consider the community. I crossed my arms. The hives are 90 feet from the nearest property line and behind a locked fence. You'd have to break in to even get near them. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Her expression didn't change, but her eyes twitched, just a flicker. I hope that's not an accusation, she said. It's not. Yet. We stood there like that for a moment, staring through the iron bars like 2 diplomats in a Cold War standoff. Then she did something that stuck with me more than anything she said. She leaned in slightly and lowered her voice. Bees come and go, Mr. Brenner, but neighborhoods, they remember who played nice. And just like that, she turned and walked away. That was her first move. Not legal, not loud, but it was a line in the dirt, and I knew exactly what kind of war we were in now. The next 2 weeks were like watching termites eat through the walls, quiet, steady, destructive. First came the flyers, bright yellow, stapled to utility poles and taped to mailboxes up and down the block. At the top, public health warning, dangerous insect activity reported in Meadow Glade. Below that, a pixelated photo of one of my hives with a giant red arrow pointing at it like it was a crime scene. No mention of me by name, but the address was mine, clear as day. One flyer even had a fake CDC logo on it. I ripped that one off a pole outside the grocery store and drove straight to the HOA office. Door locked, closed for deep cleaning. Convenient. Next came the garbage. I'd come out to check the hives and find fast food wrappers, smashed soda cans, one time a pile of what looked like hair extensions, no idea what that was about, dumped right outside the apiary fence like they were trying to bait wasps, or maybe just piss me off. Didn't work. I stayed quiet, documented everything. Photos, timestamps, even samples of the trash with gloves and tongs. I was building a file, my patience was longer than theirs. But then they crossed a line. It was a Wednesday. Overcast. Quiet. I had just come back from a delivery, 20 jars to a local yoga studio that wanted authentic neighborhood honey. Pulled into my driveway and noticed the back gate was open. That gate is never open. I ran, straight to the hives. 4 of them were gone. I don't mean tipped over or vandalized, I mean gone. No boxes, no base stands, just grass where they used to be. And these weren't random hives either. They were the ones with the black bees, my dad's legacy, the ones I swore I'd protect. I stood there like someone had punched a hole through my chest. A couple of the other colonies were still there, buzzing low and nervous, but the symmetry was broken. You spend enough time with hives and you start to feel their rhythm, like little cities. And when you lose part of it, everything goes off beat. I called the cops. Officer Lane showed up first, same guy who once gave me a speeding ticket for going 38 in a 35. He looked around, took a couple notes, then said, "Are you sure they didn't just, fly off?" I blinked. "They're boxes, Lane. Wooden boxes, with thousands of bees inside. You think they just packed up and walked away?" He gave me a shrug. "Could be teenagers." "Right. Teenagers with a working knowledge of apiary disassembly, no fear of stings, and an interest in selectively removing endangered pollinator strains." I showed him photos, the USDA certification, even pointed out the tire tracks that cut across my lawn in a wide arc. He squinted at them like he was solving a crossword puzzle. Doesn't prove who took them. No fingerprinting, no report filed, just a scribbled incident number and a pat on the back. "They're probably not worth much, right?" he asked on the way out. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My jaw was clenched so tight I thought I'd crack a molar. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the shed going through my dad's old records. He'd warned me once, years ago, that keeping the rare colonies would draw attention. "People want what they can't grow themselves," he'd said, "and they'll do things you wouldn't expect to get it." I thought he was talking about parasites, mites, maybe thieves at worst. I never expected it to be the goddamn homeowners association. The next morning, I found the cameras smashed. All 3, lenses cracked, memory cards gone. Whoever took the hives knew exactly where they were and what angles they covered. And just to twist the knife, there was another notice on my door. This one was certified mail. "As per unanimous vote by the Meadow Glade Standards Committee, you are in violation of Section 18.2, Unauthorized Agricultural Practices. This is your final notice before compulsory removal and legal escalation." Final notice. They'd already taken the bees. Now they were making it official. And then came the kicker. As I walked inside, still holding the letter, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, I played it on speaker. A man's voice, smooth, confident, almost casual. "Hey, this is Tyler Detweiler. We haven't met, but I hear we're in the same business. I've been hearing a lot about your honey. Thought we might, chat sometime, compare notes. Could be helpful for both of us." Click, no number left. Just that. I stood there, staring at the wall, letter in one hand, voicemail echoing in my head. That wasn't a business call. That was a warning. And for the first time in this whole stupid, buzzing mess, I felt rage. Not the kind that makes you shout. The cold kind. The kind that settles behind your ribs and starts sharpening itself. They wanted a war? Fine. But they forgot who they were poking. Because I wasn't just a beekeeper. I was the son of one. And I knew how to build a hive. But I also knew how to smoke one out. I still wasn't ready to go nuclear. Not yet. Look, I'm not some wild-eyed, vengeance-fueled vigilante. I keep bees, I compost, I say bless you when people sneeze, even when I don't like them. So I figured I'll try it their way, one last time. I called the HOA office. Ashley, the admin, picked up. She sounded about 12 and treated every call like it was a customer service line for mildly unhinged suburban drama. Hi, Meadowglade Community Office. This is Ashley. How can I help you today? Hi, Ashley. Eli Brenner. I need to speak with Karen Detweiler regarding a formal complaint. It's urgent. She paused. Can I ask what it's about? Yeah, I said. It's about someone stealing 4 federally certified beehives off my land, and the HOA mailing me legal threats after the fact. Another pause, this one longer. I don't think she's in right now. I can take a message? Sure, tell her Brenner's not backing down, and that the USDA is going to be very interested in what's going on here. Click. Alright, maybe not the softest delivery, but the message was clear. I followed it up with an email. A calm, carefully worded message with 3 attachments. A scanned copy of my USDA license. A before and after photo set of the hives. A letter of intent drafted by a friend of mine who's a lawyer in Austin. Not a lawsuit, just a heads up that I was considering legal recourse. Still no reply, so I filed a formal complaint with the county sheriff's department. Took a copy of everything. Explained the theft, the damaged cameras, the tire tracks, the loss of protected pollinators. The deputy at the desk looked sympathetic, but also very tired. HOA again? He muttered, flipping through my photos. You wouldn't believe how often these folks pull crap like this, but without a license plate or a witness, it's hard. So someone can steal $3,000 worth of federally tracked livestock, and it's just, what? Tough luck? He sighed and handed back the file. I'll file it. I'll push it up the chain, but be ready for a slow crawl. Slow crawl. That's government speak for maybe, if you're lucky, we'll care next month. Still, I wasn't done. I went to the Meadowglade Council meeting. They hold them every 3rd Thursday in the community center. Well-lit room, terrible acoustics, plastic chairs, and a decorative motivational poster that says great communities start with compliance. I signed up for a speaking slot, waited through 30 minutes of residents complaining about dog poop, lawn height, and one woman who thought a neighbor's garden gnome radiated occult energy. When it was my turn, I stood up with a folder in one hand and my dad's old beekeeping journal in the other. My name is Eli Brenner. I own the property on Sycamore Lane, the one with the apiary you've all been hearing about. I've come here to make 3 things clear. My bees are legal, my bees are licensed, my bees are gone, because someone stole them. I handed the folder to the board secretary. Karen wouldn't even look at me. I'm not accusing anyone in this room directly, I said, but you've all been complicit. Flyers, vandalism, false health scares, and now theft. I came here to be neighborly, to work it out. But if this continues, you're leaving me no choice but to escalate. Silence. No outrage. No debate. Just the dull hum of forced patience. Karen finally leaned toward her mic, voice like a woman pretending to be confused by a broken vending machine. Mr. Brenner, I understand your concerns, but the board has acted in the interest of community safety. Bee allergies are a very real... I have medical-grade EpiPens stored on site, I interrupted. I maintain a 100-foot buffer zone, and my bees haven't stung a single resident in 4 years. She blinked. Just once. Then she gave that thin-lipped smile she always gave when she thought she was winning. The board will review your complaint and respond in writing. Spoiler, they never did. I waited 2 weeks. Nothing. Then I got a letter. But not from the HOA. This one had a county seal on the envelope and came certified. Inside was a notice of inspection from the County Environmental Health Division. Someone had filed a formal complaint accusing me of unsanitary agricultural practices, hazardous biological storage, and potential stormwater runoff contamination. There it was, the next play. Not HOA mail this time. Not flyers or passive-aggressive notices. This was lawfare, and just to really salt the wound, they scheduled the inspection for a Sunday. Which is illegal, by the way. Government agencies don't work Sundays. I called the number. No answer. Left a message. No reply. Then Monday morning, a different envelope arrived. This one from the Office of Agricultural Affairs. Someone, no name listed, had requested a license review of my status as a rare pollinator handler, implying that my bees were not actually Apis mellifera, and that I might be fraudulently registering colonies under protected species codes. That's when it clicked. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a neighborly complaint. It was a campaign. They weren't trying to regulate me, they were trying to erase me. erase my bees, my business, my name, because their nephew's honey couldn't compete with mine, and Karen couldn't stand losing control. And that's when I stopped trying to play nice. I wasn't going to write another letter, and I wasn't going to call another office. I was going to find out exactly how far this thing went, and I was going to rip it out by the root. I found the crack by accident. I wasn't digging for dirt, I was just trying to track down where my bees ended up. See, each of my hives had a tiny hand-engraved brass plate on the bottom, just a serial number and a microscopic tracking chip. Not GPS or anything fancy, just a low-range RFID tag I use for inventory when I bring colonies to farms for pollination contracts. One night, half out of spite, I booted up my old RFID scanner and walked the edge of the neighborhood like a weirdo ghost hunting for insects. Nothing. 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 And then, ping. Behind the Meadowglade community garden, there's a fenced-off maintenance shed back there, always locked, supposed to hold tools, mulch, maybe a lawnmower. But the scanner chirped twice, once near the door, once near the back wall. I came back the next night with a crowbar and gloves. Yeah, I know, not legal, not proud. But when I jimmied open that side panel and shone a flashlight inside, I almost dropped it. There they were, 3 of my stolen hives, still intact, still labeled, stuffed in the corner like someone had panicked mid-plan. No bees inside anymore, just empty frames and dried wax, but the tags were still on them and they hadn't destroyed them. They'd stored them, which made no sense unless they were planning to move them again later, maybe somewhere they could use them, or display them. I took photos, logged GPS, closed it back up, and got the hell out. Next morning, I emailed the county agricultural office again, told them I had evidence of stolen federally tracked hives being hidden on HOA property. I expected a week of silence like last time. Instead, I got a call back in 2 hours. The woman on the line, Michelle, soft-spoken but sharp, asked for my photos. I sent everything. She went quiet for a long time, then asked, "Do you still have your species certification?" "Yeah," I said, "filed under Apis mellifera mellifera. Why?" Another pause, then she dropped it. "Mr. Brenner, did you know those bees are currently listed in an active federal conservation contract? Their genetics are part of a USDA-preserved pollinator initiative under grant code MP-9821. According to our files, your colonies were enrolled through your late father's permit, and any transfer or destruction without agency consent is a federal violation." I blinked. "You're saying the bees are government property?" "Not exactly, but the genetic material is. It's protected. Anyone removing them without clearance may have triggered a federal environmental compliance breach." In other words, Karen didn't just steal some bees. She messed with a federal pollinator program. And it gets better, because Michelle ran a query on who had recently contacted the department about my license review, the one accusing me of fraud. She wouldn't give me the name, but she did read the email address aloud by accident. Detweiler at detweilersgold.co. Company, not even .com. Tyler. The smug bastard actually used his business email to commit fraud against a federal registry. But the final nail? Michelle sent me a file from the registry, a scanned transfer form submitted 6 months ago. Typed, backdated, claimed that Eli Brenner voluntarily relinquishes active stewardship of Colony Group 9A through 12, B to Detweiler Agricultural Holdings for private conservation research. Signed, E. Brennan. Brennan with an O. They couldn't even spell my name right, so now I had physical proof the hives were stolen, digital proof they were tied to a federal conservation program, a forged document with a fake signature submitted from Tyler's own company, and a federal paper trail linking all of it together. Suddenly the inspections, the HOA letters, the flyers, none of it was random. This was a full-blown orchestrated takedown run by a woman who wanted to erase me to protect her idiot nephew's failing brand. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because now I had everything. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of stress, out of focus. You know that hum in your brain when everything finally clicks? Like all the scattered puzzle pieces spin into place and you're just locked in? That was me at 2:13 a.m., sitting in my shed with a half-empty coffee thermos, a whiteboard, and every file folder I'd been collecting for the last month. It wasn't just a bunch of HOA nonsense anymore. This was fraud, theft, destruction of federally protected assets. Tyler and Karen hadn't just screwed with my bees, they'd screwed with the wrong jurisdiction. So I made a plan. Step 1, go federal. I emailed everything, photos, emails, the backdated transfer form, a full incident timeline, to the USDA Enforcement Division, CCing Michelle, the pollinator coordinator who'd confirmed the conservation grant. I included my dad's original permit, his signed beekeeping journal entries, yes, the man kept impeccable notes, and proof that the hives were in my legal possession. Step 2. File an official complaint with the Office of the Inspector General. OIG handles federal fraud, especially when it involves grant money or endangered agricultural assets. I used their whistleblower portal, uploaded everything with a short summary. My property was targeted by a coordinated scheme involving forged conservation transfers, destruction of federally linked pollinators, and fraudulent complaints to regulatory agencies, all traced back to a homeowners association and a related private honey brand currently profiting off the theft. 2 days later, I got a confirmation email from a DOJ analyst. Subject line: Investigation Intake, Case Number 413D-22TX-BEES. Step 3. Go public. I contacted a reporter I knew, Jenny Cole. She used to do lifestyle pieces for the local paper, but lately she'd been freelancing on environmental reporting. I sent her the file. She read it and replied in 5 words. Can I come film tomorrow? Step 4. Trap them in their own arrogance. Remember that voicemail from Tyler? The one where he said, "We should chat. Could be helpful for both of us?" Yeah, I still had that. So I texted him. "Hey, heard your offer. I think we should talk. Let's meet. Neutral ground. No drama." He replied in less than 10 minutes. "Sure thing, man. Community center?" Perfect. I booked the room under my name, asked Jenny to bring a camera. She said she'd make it look like a docu-series. Even better. Step 5. Notify the neighborhood. I printed flyers of my own. Classy, minimalist design. Just white paper, bold letters. What did Karen and Tyler steal from our community garden? An expose on fraud, bees, and corporate greed. Live interview plus camera crew. Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Meadow Glade Community Room. All residents welcome. Free honey samples. I dropped them in mailboxes. Posted in the Meadow Glade Facebook group under my real name. Karen tried to delete the post. I reposted. She banned me. Jenny shared the event on her official news account. HOA couldn't touch that. And while they scrambled to figure out what I was planning, I was already talking to a lawyer. Not for some petty neighborhood dispute, but to prepare a federal civil suit. See, you destroy my bees, maybe I yell. You ruin my name, maybe I fight. But you commit federal fraud with my father's legacy? Now I bury you. And I don't even have to raise my voice. All I need is sunlight. The night before the meeting, I did something I hadn't done since all this started. I put on my dad's old beekeeping jacket. The one with the stitched patch on the sleeve. Property of Sam Brenner. Don't squish the queens. Still smelled like smoke and cedar. It wasn't about nostalgia, it was armor. I wasn't going to that meeting as the weird bee guy. I was going as my father's son, a legitimate agricultural steward, and the only person in that damn neighborhood who hadn't lied, cheated, or stolen. I arrived early, brought a table, a laptop, some honey samples, and 3 massive foam core poster boards Jenny helped me print. One showed the timeline of the theft. One showed the fake transfer form, complete with the misspelled Brennan. And one had side-by-side screenshots, Tyler's business email, and the complaint to the USDA. Jenny set up a tripod in the corner and told me to just act normal. She had a mic pinned to my collar and a spare for Tyler. No script, just vibes. People started trickling in, a lot more than I expected. 30? Maybe 40 residents? Some curious, some nosy, a few with that "this better be good" look you only see at HOA meetings and potlucks gone wrong. Karen showed up last, hair perfect, clipboard tight to her chest, lips pursed like she was tasting sour lemons and trying to pretend they were wine. And then Tyler walked in. Tan slacks, branded polo with Detweiler's gold stitched in gold thread, and a smile so fake it should have come with a warning label. He walked straight up, hand extended like we were golfing buddies. "Eli, glad we're doing this. I think there's a lot of confusion we can clear up tonight." I didn't shake it, just said, "Sure." Let's start with the truth. I opened my laptop and hit play. First clip, his voicemail, the one where he casually suggests we chat and make things helpful. Then Jenny cuts to the forged transfer form, zooming in on the signature. "That's not even how I spell my name," I said to the crowd. "That's a forged USDA document, filed from Tyler's company account." A few people gasped. I don't say that lightly, actual audible gasps. Karen stepped forward, voice tight. "This isn't the time or place." "It's exactly the time," I cut in. "You made it the place when you used your position as HOA president to file fraudulent complaints, cover up a theft, and use community property to store stolen hives." Then I clicked the next slide, photos of my hives in the HOA's locked maintenance shed. I turned to the crowd. These hives were part of a federally supported conservation program. You all voted to fund the garden, remember? That shed is owned by all of you. That means you were involuntary participants in a federal crime. Dead silence. Tyler was sweating. Karen looked like her jaw was trying to chew itself shut. Jenny, bless her, just kept filming. I finished with this. I tried to handle this quietly. I reported the theft, the harassment, the lies. I submitted documents. I called for help. And every step of the way, the people running this neighborhood blocked me, mocked me, and tried to erase everything my father built. Then I held up one jar of honey, just one. This isn't about bees. It's about integrity. And I promise you, if you let people like them stay in power next time, it won't be my bees. It'll be your garden, your trees, your property. Because once someone learns they can steal without consequence, they don't stop. And then I sat down. No mic drop, no applause. Just the weight of truth sitting in the middle of the room like a hive full of hornets. A woman from 3 rows back raised her hand and asked if Tyler had a business license. Someone else wanted to know what the hell Karen was doing accessing the garden shed alone. A man near the back muttered, "I knew something was off about those flyers." And Karen, she walked out. Didn't say a word. Just turned on her heel and left like she was late for a Botox appointment. Tyler followed 5 minutes later, but not before Jenny tried to ask him on camera if he'd forged the document. His answer? No comment. Classic. That night, Jenny's article went live. Honey, they stole the bees. HOA accused of fraud and theft in protected pollinator scandal. It hit local Twitter hard. Then the environmental blogs picked it up. Then a small piece in the regional news. Then a call from actual federal investigators asking for an in-person interview. By the end of the week, Tyler's business website was down for maintenance. Karen's name disappeared from the HOA site entirely, and the next board meeting had one item on the agenda: emergency vote to remove current president due to breach of community trust. Guess how that went? The fallout came faster than I expected. 3 days after the meeting, someone nailed a handwritten note to my front gate. All it said was, "We owe you a serious apology. Thank you for protecting something real. Lot 12? That was the Langstons. Retired couple, always voted with Karen. Apparently not anymore. By the end of the week, half the neighborhood had flipped. The Facebook group, where I'd been banned just 2 weeks before, was on fire. Residents were posting clips from Jenny's article, screen grabs of the forged document, even old photos of Tyler at farmers markets with captions like "Our honey hero" or just a sticky-fingered liar. It got worse for them. Jenny's video hit 80,000 views in 5 days. Some sustainable living influencer reshared it with the caption, "This is why we support local, not fake, local." That post, 500,000 likes. Then came the inspection. Not for me, for them. The USDA sent a field agent and a representative from the Office of Pollinator Preservation. I didn't even know that existed until then. They knocked on my door in matching windbreakers and spent an hour walking my property, taking notes, nodding quietly while I explained hive construction, queen lineage, and how my dad tracked every brood cycle by hand. Then they went to the community garden. I wasn't invited to that part, but someone sent me a picture. Karen standing on the grass, arms folded, while 2 agents photographed the shed like it was a crime scene. A week later, the HOA received a formal cease and desist order from the USDA regarding unauthorized relocation and storage of protected pollinators, along with a pending investigation into willful misrepresentation of agricultural documentation. And Tyler? Oh man, his website never came back online. Instead, Detweiler's Gold got hit with a cease and desist for false advertising after USDA reps found that none of his products could be traced to certified sources. Turns out the jars he was selling under heritage bee strains were made with mass-produced syrup blends from an overseas bottler. His distribution deals? Gone. Retailers quietly pulled the brand from shelves. Even his podcast vanished overnight. But the real cherry on top? At the next HOA meeting, held in the same room, same chairs, same terrible lighting, I sat in the back while Karen's removal vote went through. She tried to talk. I believe we've all let things get a little too personal. Someone in the front row cut her off. "Karen, you hid stolen hives in the community shed." The vote was called. The result? Unanimous. Even the guy who once called my bees those flying lawsuits raised his hand to boot her. They didn't clap. It wasn't that kind of victory. It was quiet, cold, clean. Karen gathered her clipboard, stood up, and walked out without looking at anyone. I watched her go, not out of spite, just to mark the moment. Because sometimes justice doesn't shout. Sometimes it just shows up. nods, and leaves the door open on its way out. A few weeks later, the wildflowers came back. Not because of anything I did, just the season turning like it always does. But there was something about seeing that stretch of goldenrod behind the shed buzzing again with life that made the whole nightmare feel like a bad fever dream finally breaking. I rebuilt the hives, took my time with it, sanded the new boxes by hand, repainted them the same shade of faded sky blue my dad used, even though the bees couldn't care less. I brought in new queens from a breeder up north, close cousins to my dad's original line, and for the first time since this whole mess started, I sat out by the apiary without looking over my shoulder. The HOA left me alone. Karen resigned for personal reasons, and rumor has it she sold her place to a quiet couple with 2 toddlers and a labradoodle named Pickles. Tyler vanished like a dropped Instagram story. No honey, no podcast, not even a LinkedIn update. Last I heard, he moved to Austin and started a CBD soda brand. The community garden? Still standing. I offered to donate a couple hives for pollination, but only if they installed real locks and gave me exclusive access to maintenance. They agreed. Lot 12 even baked me a cake. Lemon with honey frosting. Not bad. Jenny's article won her some kind of regional journalism award. She came by to film a follow-up. This time, she didn't need a mic. Just me in my veil, checking frames and laughing at a drone that flew smack into my face. People still ask me if I'm angry. I'm not. I lost a lot, but not everything. Not the hives, not my name, not the thing my father built with smoke and patience. And now, on Saturday mornings, when people stop by the roadside stand to buy a jar of Brenner's bees, I sometimes tell them the story. The one about the HOA, the lies, the garden shed. They always ask the same question. So what happened to the queen? And I just smile and say, oh, she got dethroned. Then I hand them their change, nod toward the buzzing in the trees, and say, don't worry, the hive's doing just fine.